A billionaire takes his son to the drive-thru, but when he sees a poor mother with no money, he does the unthinkable. The night was calm when Robert pulled into the drive-thru lane. Connor was in the back seat, quiet as always. The boy was 5 years old and the observant type. He spoke little, but when he did, it was to say something that mattered. "Are you hungry, son?" "Yes, I am, Daddy." Robert smiled through the rearview mirror. It had been a long day. Meetings, decisions, paperwork. He preferred not to think about it now. He just wanted to grab something quick to eat with Connor and go home. The line was moving slowly, 4 cars ahead. Robert sighed and leaned back in his seat. That's when he saw it. A woman was standing near the service window. She was holding a child in her arms, a small blonde girl with light eyes. The mother was also blonde. She looked exhausted. Robert frowned. It wasn't common to see someone on foot there, especially holding a child. The line moved a bit. Now he was closer and could see better. The woman approached the window when the car in front drove away. She said something to the attendant. Then she started searching her pockets. She pulled out some coins, counted them slowly, showed them to the attendant. The attendant shook her head. The woman insisted. She counted the coins again, as if that would change anything. The attendant said something short and closed the window. The woman lowered her head. Robert felt a pang in his chest. Connor stirred in the back seat. "Daddy?" "Yes, son." "What is she doing?" Robert looked through the rearview mirror. "I think she's trying to buy food." Connor was quiet for a few seconds, watching. "She couldn't get any." "It seems not." The woman walked away from the window. The little girl in her arms looked at everything with those bright, serious eyes. She wasn't crying. She just looked. The line moved. Now it was Robert's turn. He pulled the car up to the service window. The attendant opened it with a professional smile. "Good evening. May I take your order?" Before Robert could answer, Connor spoke from the back seat. "Daddy." Robert looked through the rearview mirror. "What is it, Connor?" "She doesn't have any money." Robert turned his head slightly. "I know, son." Connor kept looking at the woman who was now further away, leaning against the side of the restaurant building. The little girl was still in her arms. "She has a daughter too." "I saw." Connor fell silent. Robert looked back at the attendant, but before he could say anything, his son spoke quietly. "Daddy, can I give her my burger?" Robert froze. He turned all the way around this time. Connor was serious. Those innocent eyes were fixed on the woman. "You want to give her your burger?" Connor nodded. "Yes, she needs it more than I do." Robert felt something different in his chest, a mixture of surprise and pride. "Are you sure, Connor?" "I am. Look at the little girl. Daddy. She must be hungry." Robert looked at the woman again. The child in her arms really did look hungry. Too quiet. Too tired. He took a deep breath and turned back to the attendant. "I'll take 2 large combos." The attendant wrote it down. "And 3 extra burgers with fries and juice." The attendant blinked. 3 extra." "That's right." "All right." Robert paid without hesitation. When the orders were ready, he took everything and parked the car right there on the side. "Come with me, Connor." Connor quickly got out of the car. Robert grabbed the extra burgers, fries, and juices. He walked over to the woman. She noticed him approaching and became tense. She held her daughter tighter, as if bracing herself. Robert stopped in front of her. "Hi." The woman didn't reply. She just looked at him suspiciously. "I saw you trying to buy something there," Robert said, pointing toward the window. "I brought this for you and your daughter." He held out the burgers and juices. The woman's eyes widened. I can't accept this." "Yes, you can," Connor said before his father could reply. "It was my idea." The woman looked at the boy. Connor was smiling. That child's smile that hasn't yet understood the harshness of the world. "Really, I don't want to bother anyone." "You're not bothering anyone," Robert said firmly. "We just want to help." The woman bit her lip. The little girl in her arms looked at the burgers with a silent, heartbreaking longing. "Please, take them," Connor insisted. The woman closed her eyes for a second. When she opened them, they were moist. "Thank you," she whispered. Robert handed everything over. She held it with difficulty, balancing her daughter in her arms. "Do you want to sit in the car? At least you can eat more comfortably," Robert offered. No, no need. You've already done too much. It's no trouble. Seriously. Thank you, from the bottom of my heart. She looked close to tears, as if she was ashamed to accept help but needed it too much to refuse. Connor took a step forward. Wait! The woman stopped. Connor ran back to the car and returned with his own burger in his hand. Here, this is mine. I want you to have it too. Robert felt a tightening in his chest. The woman's eyes were wide. No, sweetie. You need to eat. I'll eat at home, Connor said simply. You need it more. She looked at the boy with an expression that mixed gratitude, shame, and something that looked like hope. The little girl reached her hand out toward the burger. She wanted it. She needed it. The woman accepted. Thank you, she said, her voice cracking. Thank you so much. Connor smiled again. Robert placed a hand on his son's shoulder. Let's go, Connor. They walked back to the car. Robert started the engine, but before driving away, he looked in the rearview mirror. The woman had sat down on a bench near the entrance. She opened one of the burgers and gave the first piece to her daughter. The little girl ate desperately. Robert felt a lump in his throat. Daddy? He looked at his son. Yes, Connor. We did the right thing, didn't we? Robert smiled. You did more than the right thing, son. You did something incredible. Connor lowered his eyes, feeling a little embarrassed. I thought she needed it. Robert reached out and affectionately ruffled the boy's hair. And you were right. I'm very proud of you. Connor smiled, that smile that lit up his whole face. Robert drove slowly out of the parking lot. But the image of that blonde woman and the light-eyed little girl stayed in his head. On the way home, Connor ate half of his combo and saved the rest. I'm full, Daddy. Are you sure? I am. Robert didn't insist. He knew his son was thinking about the woman too. When they got home, Connor took a shower and went straight to bed. Before falling asleep, he called for his father. Daddy. Yes, son. Do you think she'll be okay? Robert sat on the edge of the bed. I hope so, Connor. She looked very tired. She did. Connor was quiet for a moment. If we see her again, can we help her more? Robert felt his heart tighten again, with pride this time. Yes, son. Whenever we can, we help. Connor smiled and closed his eyes. Robert stayed there for a few minutes, just watching his son sleep. He couldn't explain what he felt, but he knew Connor had done something rare that night, something pure, something right, and Robert had never felt so proud to be a father. He left the room quietly, but the image of the blonde woman and the light-eyed little girl stayed in his head. That wouldn't be the last time he thought about them. He didn't know it yet, but something inside him had changed. The morning was cold when the knocking on the door began. Rebecca woke up startled. Her heart pounded in her chest. Olivia was still sleeping on the mattress next to her, wrapped in a blanket that was too thin for the morning temperature. The knocking continued, louder this time, insistent. Open the door, we have an eviction notice. Rebecca felt her stomach turn. No, it couldn't be now. Not like this. She got up quickly, her legs still weak from the bad sleep the night before. She picked up Olivia carefully so as not to wake her abruptly. The little girl stirred, groaned softly, but didn't open her eyes. Rebecca went to the door. She took a deep breath before opening it. Two men were standing there. One of them held an official document. The other had his arms crossed, a stern expression. Rebecca Lawson. That's me. We have an eviction order. You have 1 hour to vacate the apartment. Rebecca felt her legs tremble. She held Olivia tighter. 1 hour? But I asked for more time. I spoke with the landlord. I said I would manage to get it. The order has already been issued, ma'am. 1 hour. The man handed the paper to her and stepped back. The other leaned against the hallway wall, arms crossed. Waiting. Watching. Rebecca slowly closed the door. Olivia woke up, started to whimper. Shh, my love. It's okay. Mommy is here. But it wasn't okay. Nothing was okay. Rebecca looked at the small apartment, almost empty. She had already sold almost everything. The table, the chairs, the old television, everything to try and pay the back rent. It wasn't enough. Now only a few clothes scattered on the floor, a thin mattress, a worn blanket, and the few belongings she hadn't managed to sell remained. Olivia cried louder now. Rebecca put her on the mattress and started gathering everything she could. She grabbed the clothes, folded them quickly, stuffed them into 2 plastic shopping bags she took from the kitchen, grabbed the remaining diapers, some empty bottles, a small blanket Olivia liked to hold while sleeping. Her hands were shaking as she did everything. Olivia continued crying. She didn't understand what was happening, but she felt her mother's despair. She felt that something was wrong. "Calm down, sweetie, calm down. Mommy is here." "It's okay." Rebecca repeated the words like a mantra, trying to calm her daughter, trying to calm herself, but it wasn't working. She looked at the imaginary clock in her head. 40 minutes had already passed. She picked up the blanket, wrapped it with the clothes, tied the bags with a tight knot. Olivia stretched out her little arms. She wanted to be held. Rebecca picked her up again. She felt the weight of her daughter in her arms. She smelled her blonde hair. She looked at the empty apartment. This had been the place where she tried to rebuild her life after everything fell apart, where Olivia took her first steps, where she woke up every night with her daughter crying and promised that things would get better, that she would manage. Now there was nothing left. Rebecca felt the tears well up, but swallowed them back. She couldn't cry now. She needed to be strong. She walked to the door, picked up the 2 bags with one hand, Olivia in the other arm. She looked back one last time, then she closed the door. The man in the hallway was waiting. He held out his hand. "Key." Rebecca took the key from her pocket and handed it over. He took it without saying anything, without looking at her, without caring. Rebecca slowly walked down the stairs. Each step felt heavier than the last. Olivia whimpered in her arms. The bags weighed down her arms. When she left the building, the cold air hit her face like a slap. Nowhere to go, no money, no plan. Rebecca started walking. She didn't know where to, she just knew she needed to get out of there. She needed to find something, some solution. Olivia started crying louder. She was cold, hungry. "I know, my love, I know. Mommy will figure something out." But she didn't know how. Rebecca walked toward the city center. The streets were busy. People hurried past. Cars honked. Stores opened their doors. The world functioned normally except for her. She went into the first store she saw, a small bakery. The smell of fresh bread filled her nose and made her stomach rumble. The owner was behind the counter organizing the loaves. "Excuse me." The man looked at her, then at Olivia, then at the bags in her arms. "I'm looking for work. Anything. I can clean, organize, work the counter. Whatever you need." The man shook his head before she even finished speaking. "I'm not hiring." "Please, I really need it. I'll take anything. I can start right now." "I already said I'm not hiring." His tone was firm. Final. Rebecca left there with a heavy heart. She tried the store next door, a pharmacy. The clerk was on the computer. She didn't even look up when Rebecca approached. "Excuse me, I'm looking for work." The clerk finally looked at her. She gave a quick look up and down. "We don't have any openings." "I can do anything. Organize stock, clean, anything." "We don't have any openings." The clerk turned her back and returned to the computer. Rebecca left again. Olivia was crying louder and louder now. The hunger was becoming unbearable. "Calm down, sweetie. Calm down. Mommy will figure something out." But how? Rebecca tried one more store, a clothing boutique. The owner looked at her with disdain. "I'm not hiring." She tried a small convenience store. "I don't have any openings." She tried a diner. "Sorry, I can't help you." Each answer was a stab. Each judgmental look was an added weight on her shoulders. Olivia was crying non-stop now. People on the street started looking, some with pity, others with irritation. Rebecca sat on a park bench. She held Olivia in her lap and opened one of the bags with difficulty. She had a leftover cracker she had saved. She gave it to her daughter. Olivia took it with her shaky little hands and ate it quickly, still crying, still hungry. Rebecca looked at the bag. There was nothing left. That was the last cracker. She held back her tears. She couldn't break down now. She had to keep going. She had to find something. She got up again, more stores. More attempts. "We don't have any openings. I can't help you. Sorry." Nobody wanted to know, nobody cared. An hour passed. Then 2. Rebecca was exhausted. Her arms ached from carrying Olivia. Her legs ached from walking. Her heart ached from so much rejection. Olivia continued crying, weak, tired, hungry. Rebecca stopped in the middle of the sidewalk. She didn't know what to do anymore. She didn't know where to go. That's when she heard it. "Rebecca." She turned around. A small boy was standing there, wide eyes, a smile on his face. Connor. Behind him, his father, Robert. Rebecca felt her face flush with shame. Of all the places, of all the people, Connor ran up to her. "It's you. The lady from last night." He was smiling, genuinely happy to see her. Robert approached slowly. He looked at Rebecca, then at Olivia crying in her arms, then at the bags tossed on the ground next to her. His look changed. Concern. "Hi," he said quietly. Rebecca couldn't answer immediately. Her throat was too tight. Connor looked at Olivia. "Joyce, why is she crying?" Rebecca took a deep breath. There was no point in lying. She didn't have the energy to pretend. "She's hungry." Connor looked at his father with those worried eyes. Robert continued looking at Rebecca. "Are you okay?" Rebecca shook her head. "No." The word came out simple, direct, honest. Robert waited. Rebecca continued. "I was evicted this morning. I have nowhere to stay. I don't have any money. I'm looking for any job, Tess, but no one wants to hire me." Her voice was firm. No frills, no drama, just the truth. Robert was silent for a few seconds, processing. Connor tugged at his father's hand. "Daddy, can we help her again?" Robert looked at his son, then back at Rebecca. "Have you two eaten today?" Rebecca shook her head. "No." Robert didn't hesitate. "Come with me." He picked up the bags from the ground before Rebecca could protest. "Let's eat first, then we'll talk calmly." Rebecca followed him. She didn't have the strength to refuse. She had no choice. Robert led the two of them to a simple restaurant nearby. Nothing fancy. Just a clean and welcoming place. They sat at a table in the corner. Connor sat next to Rebecca. He looked at Olivia with curiosity and affection. "What's her name?" "Olivia." "She's so little." "She is. She's 2 years old. I'm 5. Connor smiled proudly. Robert ordered food for everyone. When it arrived, Rebecca gave the first piece to Olivia. The little girl ate desperately, as if she would never eat again. Rebecca ate slowly. Each mouthful seemed heavy. She was ashamed, afraid of seeming too desperate. But she was. Robert didn't ask questions during the meal. He just watched in silence, respectful. When they finished, he leaned forward. "You said you have nowhere to stay." Rebecca nodded. "And you don't have family, friends?" "No." The answer was short, painful. Robert was quiet for a moment, thinking, assessing. Connor tugged at his father's sleeve. "Daddy, can she stay with us?" Rebecca's eyes widened. "No, there's no need for that. I just need a job, anything. I'll manage later." Robert looked at her. "What kind of experience do you have? Anything, cleaning, organizing, childcare, cooking, whatever you need, I'll do it." Robert continued looking at her, as if measuring, assessing, deciding. Then he looked at his son. Connor had those hopeful eyes again, full of kindness. Robert sighed. "I have a proposition." Rebecca waited, her heart pounding. "You can stay at my house for now. Help with organizing the house, meet with Connor when I need you. Nothing heavy, nothing exploitative, and I'll pay you for it." Rebecca was speechless, literally unable to speak. You're serious?" "I am. But you barely know me." "I know, but you need help. And I need someone to help around the house." "It makes sense for everyone." Rebecca felt the tears return. This time she couldn't hold them back. I don't know what to say." "Say you accept," Connor said quietly, smiling. Rebecca looked at the boy, then at his father, then at Olivia, who had finally stopped crying and was looking at everything with those calm, bright eyes. "I accept." Robert nodded. "Then let's go home." They left the restaurant together. Robert put Rebecca's bags in the trunk of the car. Connor stayed by her side the whole time, chatting excitedly. You'll see, our house is cool. It has a backyard, and I have toys. I can lend some to Olivia." Rebecca couldn't believe what was happening. A few hours ago, she was being evicted, desperate, lost, hopeless. Now she was going to the house of a stranger who had decided to help her without a second thought. She looked at Robert through the rearview mirror. He was driving in silence, focused on the road. "Thank you," she said quietly. Robert looked at her in the mirror. "You don't need to thank me." "Yes, I do." "You had no obligation to do this for me." "I know." He looked away again, focused on the road. Connor turned around in his seat. "Rebecca, you'll like our house. It's a little messy sometimes, but it's nice. And I have lots of toy cars. I can lend some to Olivia to play with." Rebecca smiled for the first time that day. "She's going to love it." "Thank you, Connor." Olivia was already asleep in her arms, finally peaceful, finally safe. When they arrived at the house, Connor ran out of the car. "Come on, come and see." Robert grabbed the bags and carried them inside. Rebecca followed with Olivia in her arms. The house was simple, comfortable. Nothing exaggerated, nothing ostentatious, just a home. Connor showed everything excitedly. "This is my room, and this here is the playroom, and over there is another room that's empty. You can use it." Rebecca looked at Robert. "Seriously?" "Of course. Make yourself at home. It's yours now." She walked into the room. It was small but cozy. It had a made-up bed, a closet, a window overlooking the backyard, clean curtains. Rebecca gently placed Olivia on the bed. The little girl continued sleeping, tranquil. She sat on the edge of the bed, looked at the room, looked at her sleeping daughter, and she finally let the tears fall. For the first time in a long time, she had a roof over her head. For the first time in a long time, Olivia was safe. And for the first time in a long time, Rebecca felt that maybe, just maybe, things could really get better. Connor appeared at the door. "Is everything okay?" Rebecca quickly wiped her tears. "Yes, it is. Everything is okay now." Connor smiled. "That's good. You'll like it here." And for the first time in a long time, Rebecca believed him. Night slowly fell over the house. Rebecca was still sitting on the edge of the bed, watching Olivia sleep. The little girl was lying on her side, her blonde hair spread out on the clean pillow. She was breathing deeply, peaceful. It had been so long since Rebecca had seen her daughter sleep like this, without crying, without waking up startled, without being cold. She reached out and brushed a lock of hair from Olivia's face. Her skin was warm, healthy. Rebecca felt her chest tighten, but this time it wasn't from anguish. It was from relief. Light knocking on the door. She turned. Connor was standing there, holding a box of toys. "Can I come in?" Rebecca smiled. "Of course." Connor entered the room slowly, as if afraid to make noise. He looked at Olivia sleeping. "Is she sleeping?" "She is." "Does she sleep a lot?" Rebecca hesitated. "It depends. Sometimes, yes. Other times, no." Connor put the box on the floor and started taking the toys out. Small cars, building blocks, a worn teddy bear. "She can play with these when she wakes up," he said, organizing everything carefully on the floor. "I don't use them much anymore, so it's okay." Rebecca felt her eyes sting again. "You don't have to do this, Connor." "I want to. She'll like them." Connor finished organizing the toys and stood there, admiring his own work. Then he looked at Rebecca. "Dad, are you going to stay here forever?" The question took her by surprise. I don't know. For now, yes." "I hope so. My dad is less sad when people are here." Rebecca frowned. "Sad?" Connor shrugged. "He doesn't talk about it, but I notice." Before Rebecca could answer, Robert appeared at the door. "Connor, it's bedtime." Connor scowled. "But I wanted to stay a little longer." "You can tomorrow. Now go brush your teeth." Connor sighed but obeyed. He shuffled out of the room. Robert stood at the door. He looked at Olivia sleeping, then at Rebecca. "Is she okay?" "She is. Finally sleeping properly." Robert nodded. He was silent for a few seconds. as if he wanted to say something but didn't know how. "If you need anything at all, just call. My room is at the end of the hall. Thank you." Robert was about to leave, but Rebecca called out, "Robert," he stopped. "Thank you, truly, for everything." Robert looked at her. There was something different in his gaze, something gentle. "You don't have to thank me. Make yourself at home here." He left and gently closed the door. Rebecca lay down next to Olivia, pulled the blanket over both of them, closed her eyes. For the first time in months, she slept without fear. Rebecca woke up in the middle of the night. Not because Olivia was crying, not because she was cold, she just woke up. She looked at the clock on the wall. 2 in the morning. Olivia was still sleeping deeply beside her. Rebecca carefully got up so as not to wake her. She left the room quietly and went to the kitchen. The house was quiet, dark. She turned on the kitchen light. Everything was organized, clean, simple. She opened the refrigerator. There was food, plenty of food. Rebecca closed the refrigerator and leaned against it for a few seconds, just feeling, just processing. Can't sleep. She turned around, startled. Robert was standing in the kitchen entrance, wearing a sweatshirt and slippers. He looked like he hadn't been sleeping either. "Sorry, I didn't mean to wake you." "You didn't." "I was already awake." He entered the kitchen and poured a glass of water, offered it to her. "Want some?" Rebecca accepted. Drank slowly. Robert leaned against the counter, facing her. "How are you feeling?" Rebecca took a deep breath. "I'm still processing everything, I think. I can imagine." They were silent for a few seconds. It wasn't an uncomfortable silence, just silence. Robert broke it first. "You don't have to talk if you don't want to, but how did you end up in this situation?" Rebecca looked at the glass of water in her hands. Thought about whether she should answer, whether she should open up about everything, but something about him seemed genuine, seemed safe. "It's hard raising a child alone," she began quietly. "It's very hard." Robert waited. "It's not just the financial part, it's everything, the sleepless nights, the decisions you have to make alone, and you never know if you're doing the right thing." She paused, breathed. Olivia had colic when she was a baby. She would cry all night, and I would stay there, walking around the house with her in my arms, not knowing what to do. With no one to help me, with no one to tell me that it would pass, that I was doing the right thing. Robert continued in silence, just listening. And when she finally slept, I couldn't sleep, because I was afraid something would happen, that I wouldn't hear her cry, that I would make a mistake and she would suffer because of it. Rebecca wiped away a tear that started to run down her face. Then she grew a little, and it got easier in some ways, but harder in others, because she started walking, exploring, and I couldn't take my eyes off her for a second. "It must have been exhausting," Robert said softly. "It was. It is. Because you never really rest. Even when she's sleeping, you're thinking, planning, worrying." Rebecca took a deep breath. "And the hardest part isn't even the physical exhaustion. It's the emotional one. It's carrying her in your arms all day because all she wants is to be held. It's trying to work with her clinging to you. It's knowing that you have to be strong all the time, because if you break down, there's no one to hold things together." Robert slowly shook his head, as if he understood. "And work. How did you deal with that?" Rebecca gave a bitter laugh. "I didn't deal with it well. I lost several jobs because I had no one to leave her with. I didn't have money for daycare. I didn't have family to help." She paused. "So I tried to take her with me, but no one wants to hire someone who shows up to work with a child in their arms. No one wants to hear a baby cry while they're working. It must have been very lonely." Rebecca looked at him. There was genuine understanding in his eyes. It was because everyone judges. Everyone looks at you as if you failed at something, as if it's your fault for being in that situation. She took a deep breath. "And the worst part is that you start believing it. You start blaming yourself for everything, for not being able to give her more, for not being able to buy the things she needs, for not having a stable home, for not being enough." Her voice broke at the end. Robert was quiet for a few seconds. Then he said softly, You are enough. Rebecca looked at him, surprised. You don't know me well enough. I know, but I see. I see how you take care of her, how you fight for her. That is being enough. Rebecca felt the tears return, but she didn't say anything. Robert continued. Raising a child alone isn't easy. I know that. Rebecca frowned. You raise Connor alone too? Robert nodded. Yes. His mother. She's no longer in our lives. It's been a few years now. I'm sorry. No need. It was better that way. They were silent again. This time it was a silence of mutual understanding. But I have resources, Robert continued. I can afford to pay someone to help. I can put Connor in a good school. I can give him security. You didn't have that option, and yet you kept fighting. Rebecca wiped her tears. I didn't have a choice. There's always a choice. You chose to stay. You chose to fight. That counts. Rebecca didn't know how to respond. No one had ever spoken to her like that. No one had ever validated her struggle that way. Thank you, she whispered. Robert gave a half smile. You'll be okay here. Both of you will. Rebecca believed him. They went back to the living room, sat on the sofa, each in a corner. The house remained silent. Can I ask you something? Robert said after a while. You can. Why didn't you ask for help earlier? Like, from the government, the social services, things like that. Rebecca sighed. I tried. But the bureaucracy is enormous. It takes months. And meanwhile, you have to survive. You have to pay rent. You have to eat. You can't wait. Robert shook his head. I understand. And there's the judgment too. People look at you as if you're lazy, as if you don't want to work. As if you chose to be in that situation. Rebecca paused. But nobody chooses this. Nobody wakes up and thinks, today I'm going to be poor and desperate. Things just happen. And then you're stuck, and you can't get out. Robert was quiet, thoughtful. I had never thought about it that way, he admitted. Most people don't, because they've never been through it. They continued talking for a while longer, about life, about difficulties, about raising children. Rebecca realized it was easy to talk to him. He didn't judge, he didn't interrupt. He just listened, with respect, with attention. Eventually, Connor appeared in the living room, dragging a blanket and holding a small toy car. Daddy, I can't sleep. Robert smiled. Come here then. Connor climbed onto the sofa and snuggled next to his father, still holding the toy car. Why are you two awake? Just talking, Robert said, stroking his son's head. Connor yawned. Can I stay here? You can. Connor got comfortable. In a few minutes, he was asleep again. Rebecca looked at them, father and son, together. Something moved within her. It wasn't envy. It was longing. Longing for something she never had. Robert noticed she was looking. He sleeps anywhere, Robert said softly, smiling. He's a great boy. He is. I'm lucky, Rebecca agreed. You raised him well. Robert looked at her. Thank you. But it hasn't been easy. I can imagine. They stayed there for a few more minutes, in silence, comfortable. Then Rebecca got up. I'm going back to the room. Thanks for the talk. Thank you for sharing. Rebecca smiled and left. When she got back to the room, Olivia was still sleeping deeply. Rebecca lay down next to her and pulled the blanket over them. She closed her eyes, and for the first time in a long time she felt safe, not just physically, but emotionally too, because someone had listened, someone had understood, someone had validated her struggle, and that made all the difference. Robert remained seated on the sofa, watching Connor sleep next to him. He thought about the conversation with Rebecca, her words, the pain she carried, and he realized something. The house was no longer empty. It wasn't just the physical presence of Rebecca and Olivia. It was something more. It was life. It was movement. It was purpose. Connor had smiled more that day than he had in the last few months, and Robert had felt something he hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. Hope that maybe, just maybe, that impulsive decision to help a stranger in the drive-thru had been the best thing he could have done. For all of them. Robert carefully picked up Connor and carried the boy back to his room. He laid him down on the bed, covered him with the blanket, kissed his forehead. "Good night, son." Connor mumbled something in his sleep and turned on his side, still holding the toy car. Robert smiled. He left the room and went to his own room. But before lying down, he paused at the door of the room where Rebecca and Olivia were, all quiet, all peaceful. He closed his own door and lay down, and for the first time in a long time, Robert slept soundly. Because he knew he had done the right thing, and because he knew that, somehow, those two people had brought something back to his house, something he didn't know was missing. Until now. The morning arrived with the sun streaming through the bedroom window. Rebecca woke up before Olivia. She lay there for a few minutes, just watching her daughter sleep, her face peaceful, her blonde hair messy on the pillow. It was their third morning in Robert's house, and Rebecca still couldn't completely believe she was there. She slowly got up so as not to wake Olivia. She left the room quietly. The house was quiet. Robert had probably already left for work. Connor must still be sleeping. Rebecca went to the kitchen. The sink had a few dishes from the night before. Cups, plates, nothing major. She started washing them without much thought. It wasn't an obligation. Robert hadn't asked, but it felt natural, it felt right. She finished the dishes, then she wiped the counter, organized a few things that were out of place. When she turned as Connor was standing at the kitchen entrance, in his pajamas, hair messy, eyes still puffy with sleep. "Good morning," Rebecca said, smiling. Connor rubbed his eyes. "Morning." He just stood there, watching. "Are you hungry?" Rebecca asked. Connor nodded. "Do you want me to make you something to eat?" Connor thought for a few seconds, then nodded again. Rebecca opened the refrigerator. There was bread, butter, jam. Toast with jam work. It works. She prepared the snack while Connor sat at the table. He watched her in silence, swinging his legs in the chair. Rebecca placed the plate in front of him. "There you go." "Thank you." Connor started eating slowly, still a little sleepy. Rebecca sat on the other side of the table with a cup of coffee she had made for herself. "Has your father left yet?" Connor nodded. "He leaves early, but he comes back in the afternoon." "I see." They were silent for a few minutes, Connor eating, Rebecca drinking her coffee. Then Connor asked, "Are you going to stay here today?" "I am. I don't have anywhere to go." Connor smiled. "That's good." Rebecca felt her chest warm. After coffee, Connor went to the playroom. Rebecca went to check on Olivia. The little girl was still sleeping. Rebecca returned to the living room, looked around. There were a few toys scattered on the floor, pillows out of place. Nothing too messy, but not organized either. She started tidying up, put the toys in the box, arranged the pillows, wiped the furniture with a cloth. It wasn't hard work, just caring. Connor appeared in the living room with a sheet of paper and colored pencils in his hand. "Rebecca?" She stopped what she was doing. "Yes, Connor." "Can you help me draw?" Rebecca smiled. "Of course. What do you want to draw?" "A dinosaur, but I don't know how to do it properly." Rebecca sat on the floor next to him. Connor held out the sheet. "Can you draw one for me to copy?" Rebecca picked up the green pencil and drew a simple dinosaur. Nothing elaborate, just the basics. Connor looked on in admiration. "Oh, that looks cool." "Now you try." Connor picked up another pencil and started drawing, his tongue sticking out, concentrated. Rebecca stayed right beside him, just watching. When he finished, he showed it proudly. "Look, that's great, Connor." "Really? Really?" Connor smiled in that way that lit up his whole face. They continued drawing for a while longer. Connor asked for help drawing trees, then cars, then a house. Rebecca helped patiently, without rushing, and Connor seemed happy. Truly happy. Olivia woke up crying around noon. Rebecca rushed to her, picked her daughter up, changed her diaper, gave her food she had prepared earlier. Olivia ate slowly, still a little sleepy, But she didn't cry anymore. Rebecca took her to the living room, placed her on the floor with some toys Connor had lent her. Connor came running in. "She's awake." "She is." Connor sat on the floor next to Olivia, picked up a toy car and started showing it to her. "Look, Olivia, it goes vroom vroom." Olivia looked at the toy car with curiosity, stretched out her little hand and took it. Connor smiled. She liked it. Rebecca watched the two of them, Connor being kind, Olivia feeling safe enough to play. Something moved within her. It was gratitude, it was relief, it was hope. The afternoon passed quickly. Rebecca continued helping around the house, folded some clothes that were on the drying rack, organized the pantry, swept the kitchen. Nothing hard, just caring. Connor stayed nearby the whole time, sometimes drawing, sometimes playing with Olivia, sometimes just sitting near Rebecca, watching. Rebecca. "Yes. Are you going to have dinner with us tonight?" "If your dad lets me, yes." "He'll let you, he likes you." Rebecca looked surprised. "How do you know?" Connor shrugged. "He smiles more when you're around." Rebecca didn't know how to respond. Robert arrived in the late afternoon. He walked through the door and stopped. The house was different, clean, organized. With the scent of fresh cleaning, Connor ran up to him. "Daddy," Rebecca helped clean everything. Robert looked at Rebecca. She was in the kitchen, drying her hands on a cloth. "You didn't have to do that." Rebecca shrugged. "I wanted to. I didn't have anything else to do anyway." Robert looked around again. There was something different. It wasn't just the cleanliness. It was the feeling. The house felt alive. Connor tugged at his father's hand. "And she helped me draw. Look." He showed the drawings he had done during the day. Robert took the sheets, smiled. "These are great, son." "Rebecca taught me." Robert looked at her again. "Thank you." Rebecca nodded. "It was my pleasure." That evening, they had dinner together. Rebecca had prepared something simple, pasta with sauce. Nothing fancy, but it tasted good. Connor ate excitedly, telling his father everything that had happened during the day. The drawings, playing with Olivia, the stories Rebecca had told. Robert listened to everything, smiling. Olivia was in her high chair next to Rebecca, eating slowly, peaceful. Rebecca looked at the scene, everyone there, together, and she felt something strange, something she hadn't felt in a long time, belonging. After dinner, Connor asked Rebecca to give him a bath. "Daddy always gives me baths, but today I want you to." Robert looked at Rebecca, as if asking for permission. Rebecca nodded. "That's fine." She took Connor to the bathroom, prepared the water, helped him take off his clothes. Connor got into the tub and started playing with the rubber ducks. "Rebecca?" "Yes?" "Are you going to stay here forever?" Rebecca stopped lathering his hair. "I don't know, Connor. I want you to stay." Rebecca felt her chest tighten. "Why?" Connor looked at her with those sincere child eyes. "Because you're nice, and because the house is happier when you're here." Rebecca didn't know what to say, so she just continued bathing him, in silence. But inside, she was breaking down. With gratitude, with emotion, with hope. Later, after Connor went to sleep, Rebecca stayed in the living room with Olivia. The little girl was tired but still didn't want to sleep. She stayed in Rebecca's lap, just watching everything. Robert sat on the sofa next to them. "Thank you for today." "For what?" "For helping, for taking care of Connor, for everything." Rebecca shook her head. "I should be thanking you. You gave me a roof, food, security. It's the least I can do." Robert was quiet for a few seconds. "The house is different with you two here." Rebecca looked at him. Different how, Robert thought. More alive, more complete. Rebecca didn't answer. She just smiled. And in that moment, she knew. She was starting to be a part of that place. And that place was starting to be a part of her. That night, when Rebecca lay down with Olivia, she realized something. They were safe, not just physically, but emotionally too. Olivia was sleeping peacefully. No crying, no waking up startled. And Rebecca, Rebecca was starting to feel something she hadn't felt in a long time. Peace. The house had gained a routine. Breakfast, playing, lunch, drawing, dinner, bath, bedtime stories. Everything flowed naturally, as if it had always been this way, as if they had always belonged there. And for the first time since Olivia was born, Rebecca allowed herself to believe that maybe things really could get better, that maybe she wasn't alone anymore, that maybe, finally, she and Olivia had found a place where they could just be themselves, without fear, without judgment, without loneliness, just home. 2 weeks had passed since Rebecca and Olivia arrived. The routine had naturally established itself. Rebecca woke up early, prepared coffee, tidied the house. Connor woke up shortly after, always looking for her. Olivia followed her mother's pace, calmer each day, and Robert watched it all. He noticed the small changes, the way Connor smiled more, how the house had come alive, how he himself was different. It was Saturday morning when everything became even clearer to him. Connor was in the living room, playing with Olivia. He had scattered some building blocks on the floor and was trying to teach the little girl how to stack them. "Look, Olivia, you put one on top of the other. Like this?" Olivia picked up a block and tried to imitate him. The tower fell. Connor laughed. "Almost. Try again." Olivia giggled. It was the first time Rebecca had heard that sound from her daughter in a long time. Rebecca was in the kitchen washing some fruit when she heard it. She stopped what she was doing and just listened. Connor continued talking to Olivia, patient, gentle, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. "You're smart, you know. My dad says girls are very smart." Olivia clapped her hands. Connor laughed again, that uninhibited child's laugh that doesn't yet know worry. Rebecca felt her chest tighten with emotion. Robert walked into the kitchen right then. He saw Rebecca standing there looking at the living room with moist eyes. "Is everything okay?" Rebecca quickly wiped her eyes. "Everything. Just, Connor is so good with her." Robert approached. He stood next to her, watching the two in the living room. "He's always been caring, but with Olivia it's different. It's like he—" Robert stopped. He searched for the right words. "It's like he found a purpose, someone to take care of." Rebecca looked at him. "Thank you for letting us stay. Seriously. I don't know what would have become of us if—" "You don't have to thank me," Robert interrupted gently. "You brought something good to this house too." Rebecca didn't answer. She just looked back at the living room. Connor was now making faces at Olivia. She laughed, a small laugh, but genuine, and Connor seemed completely happy. Later, Robert had to leave to take care of some things. Connor asked to stay home with Rebecca. "Please, Daddy, I want to stay and play with Olivia." Robert looked at Rebecca, as if asking if it was okay. "No problem," she said. "We'll stay here." Robert left. Connor immediately went back to the living room, sat on the floor next to Rebecca. "Can I tell you something?" "Of course." Connor was quiet for a few seconds, as if organizing his thoughts. "I like having you here," Rebecca smiled. "We like being here too. Before, it was just my dad and me, and he worked a lot. I was alone sometimes." Rebecca felt her heart tighten. "But now there's you and Olivia, and the house isn't so quiet anymore." Connor looked at her with those sincere eyes. "It's like we're—" He stopped. He didn't finish the sentence. Rebecca waited. Connor shook his head. "Never mind." But Rebecca knew what he was going to say. Family. He was going to say family, and she didn't know how to feel about that. That night, after the children were asleep, Rebecca and Robert stayed in the living room. He was looking at his laptop. She was folding some laundry she had washed earlier. "Can I ask you something?" Robert said suddenly. Rebecca stopped folding. "You can." "How are you feeling here?" "Really?" Rebecca thought before answering. "Safe. For the first time in a long time, I feel safe." Robert nodded. "And Olivia?" "She's better. Much better. She laughs now, plays, sleeps through the night without waking up crying." Rebecca paused. "That's because of Connor. He's incredible with her." Robert smiled. "He likes you two very much." We like him too. They were silent for a few minutes. It wasn't uncomfortable. Just silence. Then Robert closed his laptop. Rebecca, I need to tell you something. She looked at him. His tone was serious. What? Robert took a deep breath. I'm grateful. For you being here. For helping with Connor. For bringing life back into this house. Rebecca didn't expect that. I didn't do anything special. Yes, you did. You don't see it, but you did. Robert leaned forward. Connor is happier. The house is more alive, and I feel less lonely. Rebecca felt her face flush. You don't have to say anything, Robert interrupted. Taita, I just wanted you to know. He stood up. I'm going to bed. Good night. Good night. Robert left the living room. Rebecca stayed there, alone, processing what he had said. He was feeling less lonely. So was she. The next day, Connor woke up excited. Rebecca, let's do something different today. What do you want to do? Let's bake cookies. Rebecca laughed. Cookies? Yes, my dad never bakes with me. He says he can't cook well. Rebecca looked at Robert. He was drinking coffee, looking a little sheepish. It's true, I burn water. Rebecca laughed. All right, we'll bake cookies then. Connor cheered. They spent the entire morning in the kitchen. Rebecca taught. Connor enthusiastically mixed the ingredients. Olivia was in her high chair, watching it all. Robert stayed nearby. He didn't help much, but he watched, smiling. The kitchen got messy. Flour on the floor, eggs on the counter, melted chocolate on Connor's apron. But nobody cared, because there was laughter. There was lightness. There was joy. When the cookies were ready, Connor tasted the first one. It's delicious. He ran to his father. Taste it, Daddy. Robert took a cookie, bit into it. It really is very good. Connor smiled proudly. Rebecca taught me. Robert looked at Rebecca. There was something different in his gaze, something she couldn't quite identify, gratitude, perhaps, or something more. That night, after everything was quiet, Robert stayed awake thinking. He was afraid of getting used to this, to Rebecca's presence, to how happy Connor was, to the feeling that the house was finally a real home, because he knew it was temporary. Rebecca would eventually move on, find a job of her own, a house of her own, a life of her own. And when that happened, what would be left? Emptiness again, loneliness again, Robert sighed, but at the same time he was grateful. Grateful to have helped that woman at the drive-thru, grateful to have brought her and her daughter home, grateful for every moment they were there. Even if it was temporary, even if it hurt when it ended, it would be worth it. Because Connor was happy, and Robert was starting to remember what it was like to truly live, not just survive, but to live. Rebecca also stayed awake that night, lying next to Olivia, looking at the ceiling. She knew she was getting too comfortable with the routine, with the house, with Connor, with Robert. And that was scary. Because she knew she couldn't depend on this forever. She needed to get back on her feet, find a real job, save money, regain her independence. But at the same time, she didn't want to leave, because it was safe there, it was welcoming there, it was home. And she was afraid of losing that, afraid of going back to the street, to despair, to loneliness. Rebecca closed her eyes. She wouldn't think about that now. Now she would just enjoy it, every moment, every laugh from Connor, every smile from Olivia, every conversation with Robert. Because for the first time in a long time, she was living and not just surviving. The house had been transformed. It was no longer just a place where Robert and Connor lived. It was a home, with life, with warmth, with love, and everyone felt it. Connor, who laughed more, who played more, who no longer felt alone. Olivia, who was safe, who laughed, who played without fear. Rebecca, who finally had peace, who had a roof, who had hope. And Robert, who felt gratitude, who felt fear, who felt something more, something he wasn't ready to name yet. But it was there, growing, silently, The mornings had developed their own rhythm. Rebecca woke up first. Always woke up. She went downstairs to the kitchen quietly, prepared the coffee. The scent rose through the house like a silent invitation. Robert started waking up earlier too, not out of necessity, but because he enjoyed those moments. When he came down, Rebecca was already there, sitting at the table with a cup in her hands, looking out the window. "Good morning," he would say. "Good morning." He would pour himself coffee and sit on the other side of the table. They didn't talk much at first, they just shared the silence. The kind of comfortable silence that only exists between people who don't need to fill every second with words. Rebecca drank her coffee slowly. Robert casually scrolled through his phone, but they both knew this was more than just coffee. It was connection. On one of those mornings, Robert broke the silence. "Do you always wake up this early?" Rebecca looked at him. "Always. Since Olivia was born, it became a habit. It must be tiring." Rebecca shrugged. "You get used to it." Robert took a sip of coffee. "And you? Can you sleep well now?" Rebecca thought before answering. "Better than before. Much better." "That's good." They returned to silence. But it was different now. There was something unspoken hanging in the air. Rebecca stirred her cup. "Can I ask you something?" "Sure." "Why did you help us, really? It wasn't just kindness, it was more than that." Robert was quiet for a moment, as if searching for the right words. "I don't know how to explain it well. It was instinct, I guess. I saw you two there, desperate, and I just couldn't ignore it." He paused. "And Connor, he reminded me of something I had forgotten, to look out for others, to help without expecting anything in return." Rebecca smiled softly. "He's special." He is. Robert looked at her. "But it wasn't just because of him. It was because of you too. I saw something in you that day, determination, strength. Even at rock bottom, you hadn't given up." Rebecca felt her chest tighten. "I almost gave up." "But you didn't. And that says a lot about you." Rebecca lowered her eyes. She didn't know what to say. Robert continued. "And now that you two are here, I realize we needed this as much as you did." Rebecca looked at him again. "How so?" "This house was empty. Not physically, but emotionally. It was just me and Connor. And we managed, but something was missing." He paused. "You brought life back. Warmth. Purpose." Rebecca felt her eyes sting, but held back the tears. "Thank you," she whispered. "No, thank you." The days kept passing. Rebecca and Robert began to share more than just coffee. They shared small decisions. "What do you think about making lasagna for dinner?" "Sounds good. Connor loves it." Or, "I need to buy a few things at the store. Do you want me to get anything specific?" "If you could grab some diapers for Olivia, that would help." Of course, small things, but they meant something bigger. They meant partnership. They meant trust. One evening, after the children were asleep, Rebecca was in the living room folding clothes. Robert came in and sat on the sofa beside her. "Need help?" Rebecca laughed. "Do you know how to fold clothes?" Robert made a face. "More or less." "Then maybe not." They laughed together. Robert stayed there anyway, just watching her carefully fold the clothes. "Rebecca, I've never seen Connor so happy with anyone." Rebecca stopped folding, looked at him. "Really? Really? He wakes up looking for you. He wants to show you everything he does. He wants your approval, your attention." Robert paused. "And it's not just him. Olivia too, she's blossoming here. She's turning into a different child." Rebecca felt the tears return. "He's an amazing boy, Robert. Kind, caring. You raised him very well. Thank you. But he's never been like this with anyone. Only with you." Rebecca didn't know what to say, so she just smiled. "I like him very much, and he reminds me that there's still goodness in the world." Robert looked at her intently. "You do that too." Rebecca frowned. "Do what?" "Remind me that there's still goodness, strength, hope." She felt her face flush. "I didn't do anything special." "Yes, you did. You survived. You fought. You protected your daughter. That's more than most people could manage. Rebecca lowered her eyes. I just did what I had to do. Exactly. And that makes you special. The silence returned, but now it was heavy, weighted with emotion. Rebecca went back to folding the clothes, but her hands trembled slightly. Robert noticed, but he didn't say anything. In the following days, the closeness between them became clearer. It wasn't just talk. It was the way they looked at each other, the way they moved through the house, how they knew where the other was without having to ask. Rebecca would make coffee. Robert would appear seconds later. Robert would arrive from work. Rebecca would already have dinner ready. Small synchronizations, small connections. Connor noticed, but he didn't completely understand. He just knew he liked it, that the house felt lighter, happier. Olivia felt it too. Even being so small, she smiled more when the four of them were together. One afternoon, Robert came home from work early. He found Rebecca in the kitchen baking cookies with Connor. "Daddy, look, we're baking cookies again." Robert smiled. "I see that." Connor went back to mixing the dough enthusiastically. Robert approached Rebecca. "Need a hand? Do you know how to bake cookies?" "No, but I can try." Rebecca laughed. "All right, come here." She showed him how to mix the ingredients. Robert tried duckings but made a mess. "I guess I'm not good at this." Nobody is good the first time. Rebecca took his hand and guided the movement, showed him how to do it right. Robert was quiet, aware of the touch, the warmth of her hand over his. Rebecca noticed too. But she didn't pull her hand away immediately. They stayed like that for a few seconds, close, connected. Then Connor shouted, "Look, I managed to make a round cookie." The moment broke. Rebecca pulled her hand away. Robert went back to breathing, but something had changed. Something had intensified. That night, after everything was quiet, Robert stood on the porch, looking at the stars. Rebecca appeared with 2 cups of tea. "I thought you might want some." Robert took the cup. "Thank you." She stood beside him, looking at the sky too. "Is everything okay?" she asked softly. Robert hesitated. "It is. Just thinking." "About what?" He looked at her. "About how quickly things changed." Rebecca nodded. "They certainly did. And about how I don't want this to end." Rebecca felt her heart race. "Me neither," she admitted softly. They were silent, side by side, drinking tea, looking at the sky. But they both knew something was growing between them, something that went beyond gratitude, beyond convenience, something real, something scary, something inevitable. Robert mustered his courage. "Rebecca. I'm happy you're here." Rebecca looked at him. Truly looked. "Me too." And in that moment, under the stars, with the comfortable silence between them, something changed. It wasn't love yet, but it was the beginning of something neither of them expected, but which both, secretly, desired. When they went back inside, Rebecca went straight to the room. She lay down next to Olivia. But she couldn't sleep, because she knew she was starting to feel something for Robert, and that was scary, because she couldn't afford the luxury of feeling. She couldn't afford the luxury of depending. She couldn't afford the luxury of getting attached, but it was already too late. She was already attached. Robert didn't sleep either. He stayed awake thinking about her, her smile, the way she cared for the children, the strength she had, and he realized he was starting to feel something he hadn't felt in years, something he had sworn never to feel again. But there it was, growing, inevitable, scary, real. And for the first time in a long time, Robert allowed himself to feel hope. Hope that maybe, just maybe, he could be happy again. With her. The night was silent. Connor and Olivia were sleeping. The house was at peace. Only the distant sound of the wind outside broke the silence. Rebecca was in the kitchen, alone, looking at the cup of tea in her hands without really seeing it. She was thinking thinking about everything that had happened in the last few weeks, how her life had completely changed, how she was starting to feel safe again. But she was also thinking about the past, about the things she had done, the choices she had made, the things she had never told anyone, and that weighed on her. Robert walked into the kitchen. He stopped when he saw her there. "Can't sleep?" Rebecca looked at him, shook her head. "Not really." Robert approached, got some water from the refrigerator, sat at the table across from her. "Is everything okay?" Rebecca hesitated. "It is. Just thinking." "About what?" She didn't answer right away. She kept looking at the cup in her hands, as if she was deciding something. Robert waited. He didn't pressure her, he just waited. After a long silence, Rebecca spoke. "I need to tell you something." Her tone was serious, heavy. Robert leaned forward. "You can tell me. I'm listening." Rebecca took a deep breath, closed her eyes for a second, then opened them and looked directly at him. "When Olivia was born, things got very difficult, much worse than I imagined." Robert remained silent, just listening. "I had no one, no family, no friends, no support. It was just me and her, and I wasn't prepared." Rebecca paused. Her hands trembled slightly around the cup. "She would cry all night. I didn't sleep. I didn't eat properly. I couldn't work. The money ran out fast, and I started to despair." Robert felt his chest tighten, but he didn't say anything. He just waited. "One day," Rebecca continued, her voice cracking, "one day I reached my limit. I was exhausted, broken, hopeless, and Olivia wouldn't stop crying. No matter what I did, she just cried." Rebecca wiped away a tear that started to fall. "And I thought about giving up." Robert frowned. "Giving up how?" Rebecca looked at him, her eyes filled with pain. "I thought about leaving her, abandoning her, putting her in front of some safe place and just leaving." Robert felt the air leave his lungs. Rebecca continued quickly. "I left the house that night. I picked her up. I walked through the city, looking for a place, a hospital, a church, anywhere she would be safe." Tears were now falling freely down her face. "But when I got to the hospital entrance, when I looked at her, I couldn't do it. I just couldn't leave her." Rebecca sobbed. "She was sleeping in my arms, so small, so defenseless, and I thought, how can I do this? How can I abandon my own daughter?" Robert felt his own eyes sting. "So I went back home," Rebecca said, her voice breaking. "I went back, and I swore I would never think about it again, that I would fight, that I would do whatever it took to take care of her." She looked directly at Robert. "But I still thought about it. I still had that thought, and it haunts me every day. It makes me question what kind of mother I am." The silence that followed was dense, heavy. Rebecca waited. She expected judgment. She expected rejection. She expected disdain. But Robert just looked at her, with understanding, with empathy, without judgment. He slowly got up, walked over to her, sat in the chair beside her. "Rebecca, look at me." She looked, her eyes red from crying. "You didn't abandon her," Robert said firmly. "You thought about it, but you didn't do it. And that's what matters." "But I thought about it. Everyone thinks desperate things when they're at their limit. That doesn't make you a bad person. It makes you human." Rebecca shook her head. "You don't understand. I was ready to leave my daughter. I walked all the way there." "But you came back," Robert interrupted. "You came back. And that says everything about who you are." He took her hand, held it firmly. "You were alone, desperate, without help, without hope. And yet, you chose to stay. You chose to fight. You chose to be a mother, even when everything inside you screamed to give up." Rebecca cried harder. "You are not a bad mother," Robert said softly. "First, you are a mother who went through something no one should have to go through. And yet you survived, and you brought your daughter with you." Rebecca couldn't stop crying. All the guilt, all the shame, All the pain she had kept inside for so long was finally coming out. Robert pulled her into a hug. She clung to him, cried on his shoulder, let everything out. And he just held her, firm, safe, without judging. They stayed like that for a long time. When Rebecca finally calmed down, she pulled away slightly, wiped her face with her hands. "Sorry, I didn't mean to break down like that." "You don't need to apologize. You needed that." Rebecca took a deep breath, still shaky but lighter. "Thank you for not judging me. I would never judge you for that. Never." She looked at him, truly looked. "Why? Most people would judge." Robert thought before answering, "Because I know what it's like to be at the limit. I know what it's like to make impossible decisions. I know what it's like to carry guilt for things you didn't even do." He paused. "And because I see who you are now, I see how you take care of Olivia, how you fight for her every day, how you never give up." Rebecca felt her chest warm. "You are stronger than you imagine," Robert said softly, "and braver than you think." She smiled weakly for the first time since she started telling the story. "Thank you. You don't have to thank me. You just have to believe it." After that night, something changed between them. The trust became deeper, the intimacy more intense. Rebecca was no longer afraid of being judged. She was no longer afraid to show her weaknesses. And Robert began to see her even more completely, not as someone he was helping, but as someone equal to him, someone who fought, who made mistakes, who kept going anyway. In the following days, Robert became more present, not just with Connor, but with Olivia too. He started doing small things, picking her up when Rebecca was busy, feeding her, changing a diaper or two. Rebecca noticed, and was moved every time. "You don't have to do that," she said one morning, watching him give Olivia a bottle. "I know, but I want to." Olivia looked at him with those bright eyes, trusting, safe. Rebecca felt her eyes sting again, but this time, with gratitude, Robert also began to ask more about what Rebecca wanted. "Have you thought about what you want to do next?" Rebecca was washing dishes. She stopped and looked at him. "What do you mean?" "Like, do you want to work? Study, do something specific?" Rebecca thought. "I always wanted to take a technical course, something that would give me stability, but I never had the money or the time." "What kind of course?" "Administration, maybe, or accounting. Something I can use to get a better job in the future." Robert nodded. "We can research that. See what's available." "When you're ready, of course." Rebecca looked at him surprised. "You would do that? Of course. You deserve to have choices. You deserve to have a future you chose." Rebecca felt her chest tighten, with emotion, with hope. "Thank you," she whispered. "Stop thanking me," Robert said, smiling. "We're in this together now." Connor also noticed the change in his father. He was playing in the living room when he saw Robert picking up Olivia, making faces at her, making her laugh. Connor smiled. "Daddy, do you like Olivia?" Robert looked at his son. "I do, she's adorable." "Do you like Rebecca too?" The question caught Robert by surprise. Yes. "She's a great person." Connor smiled bigger. "I like her too, I like her a lot." He went back to playing as if nothing had happened. But Robert stood there, holding Olivia, thinking he liked Rebecca more than he should, more than was safe. And that was scary. But at the same time, it brought something he hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. That night, after the children were asleep, Rebecca and Robert stayed in the living room. She was folding clothes. He was reading something on his phone, but they both knew their attention wasn't really there. It was on each other. "Rebecca." "Thank you for trusting me." Rebecca stopped folding, looked at him. "Thank you for not judging me." Robert smiled. "I would never judge you." They looked at each other for a few seconds, something passing between them, something deep, something real. Then Rebecca went back to folding clothes, but she was smiling, and Robert went back to his phone, but he was also smiling. In the following weeks, The relationship between them deepened even more. They talked more, laughed more, shared more. Robert helped with Olivia naturally now, as if it were part of the routine. Rebecca cared for Connor as if he were her own son, and the children flourished with it, with the attention, with the care, with the love that was growing in that house. Connor was happier than ever, smiling, playful, secure. Olivia was calmer, healthier, more confident. And Rebecca and Robert, they were approaching something inevitable, something neither of them had planned, something they both secretly desired, but which was still scary, because it meant vulnerability, it meant risk, it meant opening their hearts again, and they were both afraid of that. But they also knew, they knew it was happening, they knew they couldn't stop it. And maybe, just maybe, they didn't want to stop. One night, Robert found Rebecca on the porch. She was looking at the stars. "Is everything okay?" he asked softly. "It is. Just thinking." "About what?" Rebecca looked at him. "About how life changes quickly. How a few weeks ago I was desperate, and now I have all this." Robert approached. He stood beside her. "You deserve all of this and more." Rebecca smiled. "Thank you for everything." Robert looked at her, truly looked. "You don't have to thank me. You're part of this now, part of this house, part of our life." Rebecca felt her heart race. "Robert, I know," he interrupted softly. "I know it's early. I know it's complicated. But I need you to know, you're not just someone staying here. You are important. To me, to Connor, to this house." Rebecca felt her eyes sting. "You're important to me too." They stood there, side by side, under the stars, in silence. But they both knew. They knew something was growing. Something strong. Something true. Something that would change everything. And for the first time, neither of them was afraid of it. They just accepted it and waited to see where it would lead. The night was calm when Rebecca went out to the backyard. She needed air. She needed to think. The last few weeks had been intense, good but intense, and she was starting to feel something she hadn't felt in a long time, something that was scary. She was starting to depend on all of it, on the house, on the routine, on Connor, on Robert, and that was dangerous. Robert appeared a few minutes later. He leaned against the wall next to her. "Is everything okay?" Rebecca took a moment to answer. "I don't know." Robert waited. "I'm scared," she admitted softly. "Scared of what?" Rebecca took a deep breath. "Scared of getting used to this life, to this security, and then losing everything again." Robert was quiet, just listening. "I already lost everything once," Rebecca continued. "I was left with nothing, and it was awful. I don't know if I could go through that again." She looked at him. "And I'm starting to depend on you, on this house, and that scares me, because I don't want to be a burden. I don't want to be someone who needs to be supported all the time." Robert shook his head. "You're not a burden, never were. But I depend on you now, for everything, and that's not fair." Robert turned completely toward her. "Rebecca, everyone depends on someone. That doesn't make you weak. It makes you human." Rebecca lowered her eyes. "But what if you get tired? What if you realize it was a mistake to bring us here?" Robert took her hand, held it firmly. "It wasn't a mistake, and I won't get tired." Rebecca looked at him, her eyes full of insecurity. "How can you be sure?" "Because I see what you brought to this house. I see how Connor changed." "How the house changed? How I changed?" He paused. "You're not a burden. You are important, more than you know." Rebecca felt the tears well up, but she held them back. "Thank you." "Stop thanking me." They were silent for a few seconds, just holding hands, connected. Then Rebecca asked, "And you, aren't you afraid?" Robert hesitated. "I am." "Of what?" He let go of her hand and ran his hand through his hair. I'm afraid Connor will get too attached, and then suffer if things don't work out. Rebecca frowned. You think things won't work out? I don't know. I don't want him to suffer again. Robert looked at her. He's been through a lot. His mother left when he was small. He felt it, even as a child, and I swore I would protect him from any pain. He paused. But now he's attached to you, and to Olivia, and if something goes wrong, he'll suffer. Rebecca felt her chest tighten. I don't want to hurt him. Never. I know, but life is unpredictable, and I'm afraid. Rebecca moved closer, looked directly into his eyes. I won't leave. Not without reason, not without warning, I promise. Robert looked at her, searching for sincerity, and he found it. Thank you. And I will always take care of Connor. Always. No matter what happens. Robert nodded. Relieved. They went back inside together. The house was quiet, the children sleeping. They sat on the sofa, each in a corner, but closer than before. Robert, thank you for trusting me, for letting us be a part of this. Robert smiled. Thank you for staying. They were in comfortable silence, just being there, together. The next day, Connor woke up excited. It was Sunday. Robert didn't have to work, and Connor wanted to enjoy the day with everyone together. Hey, let's do something fun today, he said at breakfast. What do you want to do? Rebecca asked. I want to go to the park, all together. Robert looked at Rebecca, as if asking if she wanted to. Rebecca smiled. Let's go. The park was crowded. Children running, families having picnics, sun shining. Connor ran straight to the playground. Rebecca took Olivia along. The little girl watched everything with those bright, curious eyes. Robert stayed next to Rebecca, watching Connor play. He's happy, Rebecca said. He is. It's been a while since I've seen him like this. Olivia stretched out her little arms, wanting to get down. Rebecca put her on the ground. Olivia took a few shaky steps, still learning to walk properly. Robert knelt down beside her. Come on, Olivia, you can do it. Olivia looked at him, then took a few more steps. She stumbled. Robert caught her before she fell. Whoops, it's okay. Olivia giggled. Rebecca watched the scene, her heart tightening with emotion. Robert was so good with her, so natural, as if he were... She stopped the thought before finishing it. Connor came running back. Rebecca, come play with me. I will. She went with Connor to the playground. Robert stayed with Olivia, helping her walk across the lawn. It was a simple day, but perfect. That evening, after they returned home, Connor was lying in bed. Robert went in to say goodnight. Did you enjoy today? I enjoyed it a lot. Connor was quiet for a few seconds. Then he asked, Daddy? Yes, son. Can Rebecca stay? Robert felt his chest tighten. What do you mean? Forever. Can she and Olivia stay with us forever? Robert didn't know how to answer. Do you want them to stay? Connor nodded. I do. I like them. And we're happier when they're here. Robert felt his eyes sting. I want them to stay too, Connor smiled. Then ask her to stay. It's not that simple, son. Why not? Robert thought. Because Rebecca has to want it too. And it has to be right for her, for Olivia, for everyone. Connor thought. But you like her, right? The question caught Robert off guard. Yes, I like her. Then ask her to stay, Connor said simply. If you like her and she likes you, that's it. Robert chuckled softly. It's not that simple. It should be. Robert kissed his son's forehead. Good night, Connor. Good night, Daddy. Robert left the room, deep in thought. He found Rebecca in the kitchen. She was washing the last dishes of the day. Need help? I'm done. Robert leaned against the counter, looking at her. Connor asked me something today. Rebecca looked at him. What? He asked if you and Olivia could stay forever. Rebecca felt her heart race. And what did you say? I said it depended on you too. That you had to want it. Rebecca was quiet, processing. And you? She asked softly. Do you want us to stay? Robert looked directly into her eyes. "I do." The silence that followed was charged. Rebecca took a deep breath. "I want to too." Robert felt something inside him let go, something that had been trapped for a long time. He moved closer to her. Slowly. "Then stay." Rebecca looked at him, her eyes moist. "I'm scared." "Me too. But we can be scared together." Rebecca smiled faintly. "Together. Together." Robert held out his hand. Rebecca looked at it for a few seconds, then she took it. They stood there, holding hands, looking at each other. That's when Robert did something neither of them expected. He brought her hand to his lips and kissed it gently. It was a simple gesture, subtle but loaded with meaning. Rebecca felt her face flush, her heart pound. Robert lowered her hand, but he didn't let go. "We don't have to rush," he said softly. "We just need to try." Rebecca nodded. "I can try." Robert smiled. "Then let's try." That night, when Rebecca lay down next to Olivia, she couldn't stop smiling. For the first time in a long time, she had hope. Hope for a future, for a family, for a home. It wasn't love yet, at least not completely. But it was being born slowly, without haste, but being born, and Rebecca was ready to let it happen. Finally. Robert didn't fall asleep right away either. He stayed awake thinking about her, the touch of her hand, her smile, the way she looked at him, and he realized he was falling in love. And for the first time in a long time, he wasn't afraid of it. Because it was right, because it was real, because it was inevitable. And he was ready to love again, ready to build something new, ready to be happy. With her, with Connor, with Olivia. Together. 6 months passed. The house had completely changed. Not just in appearance, but in essence. There was life in every corner. Laughter. Mess. Love. Rebecca was in the kitchen preparing breakfast. Olivia played on the floor with the building blocks Connor had given her. The little girl was no longer that frightened, hungry child. Now she was healthy, happy, secure. Connor ran in. "Good morning, Rebecca." "Good morning, Connor. Did you sleep well?" "I did. I dreamed we went to the park again." Rebecca smiled. "We can go on the weekend." Connor cheered and went to play with Olivia. The two children got along well. Connor was protective, caring, like a true older brother. Robert appeared shortly after. He hugged Rebecca from behind, kissed the top of her head. "Good morning." Rebecca turned and smiled at him. "Good morning." It was no longer strange. It was no longer scary. It was natural. It was right. It was love. Rebecca had gotten a job a few months ago. She worked part-time at a store downtown. Nothing glamorous, but decent. Honest, enough to have independence, enough to contribute to the household, enough to look in the mirror and feel proud again. Robert had insisted she didn't need to work, that he could take care of everything, but Rebecca insisted back she needed to do it for herself. She needed to prove she could, that she wasn't that desperate woman on the sidewalk anymore, and she succeeded. Now she had her own money. She bought new clothes for Olivia, helped with the grocery shopping, saved a little every month. She had dignity again, and that made all the difference. Olivia grew more every day. She walked on her own now. She ran after Connor in the backyard. She spoke a few words. She smiled all the time. She called Rebecca Mommy. She called Connor Con, and she called Robert Bert. Robert laughed every time he heard it. "She can't say my name right." "I think it's cute," Rebecca would say, smiling. And it was. It was cute. It was perfect. Olivia didn't remember the bad days. She didn't remember the hunger, the cold, the despair. All she knew was love, security, family. And Rebecca was thankful every day for that. Connor was different too, more confident, happier, more complete. He had a family now, not just his father, but Rebecca and Olivia, and that filled an emptiness he didn't even know he had. At school, when the teacher asked him to draw his family, Connor drew 4 people, him, his dad, Rebecca, and Olivia. When he showed the drawing to Rebecca, she cried, "It's beautiful, Connor." "It's our family," he said simply, as if it had always been this way. And in a way, it felt like it always had been. Robert had finally accepted it, accepted that he could love again, that he could be happy again, that he could build a new family without fear. He looked at Rebecca and saw a future. He saw partnership. He saw companionship. He saw true love. It wasn't perfect. They still had challenges. They still had difficult days. They still had fears. But they faced them together. And that made all the difference. One quiet night, after the children were asleep, Robert and Rebecca stood on the porch, looking at the stars, as they had done so many times before. "Are you happy here?" Robert asked softly. Rebecca looked at him, smiled. "Very, more than I ever thought possible." Robert took her hand, interlaced their fingers. "Me too." They stood in silence for a few minutes, just being there, together, connected. Then Robert took a deep breath. "Marry me." Rebecca turned to him, surprised, her heart pounding. "What? Marry me? Officially? For real?" Rebecca felt her eyes fill with tears. "Robert, I know it's fast. I know we still have a lot to learn about each other, but I'm sure that I want you, that I want Olivia, that I want us, together, forever." He squeezed her hand. "So, do you accept?" Rebecca nodded, crying, smiling. "I accept. Yes, I accept." Robert pulled her into a hug. She clung to him, crying with happiness, laughing with relief. When they pulled apart, Robert kissed her, gentle, full of promise, full of love. And in that moment, everything made sense. All the pain, all the suffering, all the struggle, it had all been worth it, because it had led her here, to this moment, to this family. 3 months later, they got married. It was a simple ceremony, just a few close friends, Connor as the ring bearer, Olivia in Rebecca's arms, wearing a little white dress. When the judge said, "You may kiss the bride," Connor shouted excitedly, "Finally!" Everyone laughed, and when Robert kissed Rebecca, Connor and even Olivia clapped. It was perfect, simple, honest, true. Life continued, with ups and downs, with challenges and victories, with good days and bad days. But together, always together. Rebecca never again felt afraid of losing everything, because she knew she had roots now. She had a home. She had a family that chose her as much as she chose them. Olivia grew up secure, loved, happy, with 2 parents, an older brother, a real home. Connor gained the family he always wanted, complete, united, full of love. And Robert learned that it was possible to start over, that it was possible to love again, that it was possible to be happy even after pain. Years later, when Olivia was a grown girl and Connor a teenager, they still talked about that night at the drive-thru, about that night when everything began, when a 5-year-old boy asked his father to give his burger to a stranger and changed everything forever. Because sometimes a small act of kindness is all someone needs to survive, to have hope, to start over. And that's exactly what happened. A family was built, not by blood but by choice, by love, by kindness, by the decision not to give up on each other, and they lived happily. Not because everything was perfect, but because they were together. And together they could face anything. Together they were strong. Together they were complete. Together they were home. And in the end, that was all that mattered. If this story touched your heart, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next ones. Leave a like, because it helps this story get recommended to more people. See you in the next story.